The night smelled of salt and gunpowder. The humid July air clinging to my skin as I stood shoulder to shoulder with strangers along the Charleston waterfront. Laughter and music drifted from the food trucks behind us. But my eyes stayed fixed on the dark horizon over the harbor. Caleb's arm was draped loosely around my waist, his fingers tracing lazy circles against the fabric of my dress. We were waiting for the first boom of the 4th of July fireworks. But I could barely focus on anything except the ring hidden in my clutch, the one he'd slipped onto my finger just a month ago in the quiet privacy of our apartment. We'd agreed to keep our engagement a secret until the end of summer, just for ourselves. I thought it was romantic, having something the rest of the world didn't know. The first firework exploded, scattering red and gold across the sky. Caleb leaned down, kissed me with a smile that made my stomach flutter, and whispered, "Happy almost forever." I laughed against his lips, my chest warm with the kind of hope that makes you believe in forever. Then the crowd shifted, and I turned my head just in time to see her. Madison Cole. I'd met her once in passing at Caleb's office, all sharp cheekbones and glossy brown hair. The kind of woman you couldn't forget even if you wanted to. She was standing less than 20 feet away, her face lit up by the shimmer of the next firework. And that's when I saw it, her left hand raised to brush her hair back. The diamond catching the light. My diamond. My ring. The air seemed to thicken, the cheers of the crowd dulling into a low hum in my ears. I told myself it couldn't be, that there were 1,000 rings in the world that looked like mine, but I knew every detail of that one, the delicate twisted band, the oval cut, the tiny imperfection on the side stone you could only see if you tilted it toward the light. I had stared at it for hours in our apartment, turning it over between my fingers like a promise I could hold. Now it was on her hand, and she was smiling, looking right at Caleb. The crowd roared as another burst of color lit up the sky. But my eyes weren't on the fireworks anymore. They were locked on Madison. She wasn't alone. There was a tall man standing beside her, but his body was angled away. Attention on the display above. Madison, though, she was watching Caleb. Not in the distracted way you glance at someone you barely know, but in a steady, unbroken gaze that made my skin prickle. I felt Caleb shift beside me, his arm tightening briefly around my waist before he pulled back. Just enough to scan the crowd. His eyes landed on Madison, and something flickered in his expression, a flash of recognition he didn't try to hide. Quickly enough, my breath caught. "Do you know her?" I asked, forcing my voice to sound casual, though my pulse was pounding. He smiled too quickly. "Who?" I nodded toward Madison, pretending not to notice how his gaze darted there and back. "Her. The one in the green dress." Caleb's eyes slid away from mine. "She's from the office. Haven't seen her in months." I wanted to believe him, but my stomach twisted at the way he said it, light, almost dismissive, like he was brushing crumbs off a table. Madison laughed at something her companion said, tilting her head back. The ring caught another glint of light, a perfect twin to the one hidden in my clutch. I couldn't stop staring at it. My mind raced, searching for rational explanations. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe Caleb had helped her choose it for someone else. Maybe I was seeing things. But none of those maybes could explain the way her eyes kept finding him in the crowd, like he was the only person worth looking at. The fireworks kept booming overhead, painting the night with brilliant colors, but I felt cold. I'd always thought secrets could be romantic, something private, sacred between two people. Now, standing there in the crush of strangers, I wondered if Caleb had been keeping a very different kind of secret. One that sparkled on another woman's hand under the fireworks. The finale began, a cascade of white sparks pouring from the sky. The kind of display that usually made me forget everything else. But this time, I barely noticed. My decision crystallized somewhere between the third and fourth burst. I needed to get closer to her. Be right back, I said to Caleb, not waiting for his reply. The crowd was dense, but years of photographing events had taught me how to weave through bodies without drawing attention. I angled myself toward Madison, timing my approach for when her companion turned to point at the fireworks. Hey, I said lightly, tapping her arm as if I'd just recognized an old acquaintance. Madison, right? I think we met at the Wright and Partners open house. She turned, surprised but smiling politely. Up close, the ring was even more unmistakable, the same delicate twist in the band. The same oval diamond that had once rested on my own finger before Caleb suggested we keep the engagement quiet. My breath caught, but I forced my voice steady. Oh, yes, Rachel, isn't it? She said, and my stomach lurched. She remembered my name. I nodded, my eyes flicking to her left hand. That's a gorgeous ring, I said, tilting my head as if admiring it casually. Her smile deepened, almost glowing. Thanks. Caleb picked it out himself. Said it was one of a kind. The air between us seemed to collapse. The noise of the fireworks fading into a dull roar in my ears. I managed a weak smile, muttered something about enjoying the show, and stepped back before my expression could betray me. From the corner of my eye, I saw Caleb pushing through the crowd toward us. His face tight with something that wasn't just annoyance. Madison glanced at him, her smile softening in a way that made my chest ache. And then, over the final thunderous burst of the finale, I heard her say, "There you are, babe. I was starting to think you'd changed your mind." The crowd began to disperse after the finale, their voices rising above the lingering smoke drifting off the harbor. Caleb reached us just as Madison slipped her hand into his without hesitation, the diamond winking under the dim glow of the streetlights. "Babe," she said again, almost teasing this time, "you disappeared on me." I stood there, frozen, my gaze locked on their joined hands. Caleb's eyes darted between us, his jaw tightening. "Madison, this isn't," he cut himself off, pulling his hand away a little too late. "This isn't what?" I asked, my voice low but sharp enough to slice through the humid air. Madison looked between us, confusion creasing her brow. "Wait, you two know each other?" I almost laughed at the absurdity, but it came out closer to a scoff. "Oh, we more than know each other." Caleb's voice dropped, his tone urgent. "Rachel, not here." The way he said it, "not here," made my skin crawl. As if there was a right place to discuss why another woman was wearing my engagement ring. People were starting to glance our way, catching the tension even without hearing the words. Madison folded her arms, her expression hardening. "You told me you ended things months ago." The sentence hit like a crack of thunder. Around us, the festival chatter felt miles away. Caleb rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding both our eyes. "It's complicated," he muttered. "No," I said, my voice steady now, almost calm. "It's actually pretty simple. You asked me to marry you a month ago. And you gave her the same ring. So tell me, Caleb," I took a step closer, "which one of us did you lie to first?" For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then Madison's eyes narrowed, and she took a step back. "Wait, the same ring? This is the one your grandmother gave you. You swore it was a family heirloom." The truth slammed into me before he could even try to explain. That ring, my ring, wasn't just a symbol. It was part of a carefully crafted story Caleb had been telling both of us. Probably for much longer than either of us realized. The tension between the three of us was drawing too much attention. Caleb muttered something about needing to clear this up and stepped aside to take a call. But I knew he was just running from the collision he'd created. Madison and I were left standing under the soft hum of the street lamps. The crowd around us thinning as people headed toward the parking lot. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She studied me, as if deciding whether I was an enemy or an ally. Then she broke the silence. You said he proposed to you a month ago? I nodded. In our apartment. We agreed to keep it quiet until later in the summer. I've been carrying the ring in my clutch so no one would notice it missing from my hand. Her brow furrowed. He proposed to me in May. Said he wanted to wait to tell people until his work situation settled. She gave a bitter laugh. Guess I wasn't the only one on hold. I swallowed hard. How long have you been with him? Almost 2 years, she said without hesitation. And you? 3. The number hung in the air between us like smoke from the fireworks. Acrid and impossible to ignore. We exchanged fragments of timelines. Piecing together dinners he'd skipped, trips he'd claimed were for work. Late-night texts he said were from clients. The more we compared, the more the puzzle came into focus, and it was ugly. Caleb hadn't just been balancing 2 relationships, he'd been weaving them together. Recycling stories, reusing gifts. Even overlapping anniversaries with just enough difference to avoid suspicion. Madison shook her head slowly. He told me his grandmother's ring was a family heirloom he'd been saving for the right person. Her voice hardened. Guess he found 2. I felt an odd clarity settle over me. This wasn't just betrayal, it was choreography. Caleb had built 2 versions of himself, one for each of us. Each believing we were the only one who knew the real man. But the truth was, neither of us knew him at all. From across the street, I saw him pacing, phone to his ear. Eyes flicking toward us like he was afraid we'd form a plan without him. And in that moment, I realized we already had. Madison's gaze followed mine to where Caleb stood, still pacing with his phone. He's probably calling someone to get ahead of whatever we're about to do, she said flatly. I took a deep breath. Then we don't give him the time. We end this tonight. Her eyes narrowed, but there was a spark of agreement. Public? I nodded. Public. Right here, where he can't twist the story or slip away. Madison's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Good. Because I have something he can't talk his way out of. She reached into her clutch and pulled out her phone, tapping quickly before holding the screen toward me. It was a photo, Caleb, shirtless, in what was clearly my apartment. My kitchen tile in the background. The coffee mug I'd bought in Savannah sitting on the counter. The timestamp was from just 2 weeks ago, when I'd been out of town visiting my parents. My pulse hammered in my ears. He brought you to my home? Madison's expression was grim. He said it was his place. Showed me around like he owned it. Told me he'd just redecorated. She locked her phone and slid it back into her bag. He's not just a liar, he's reckless. A cold, focused anger settled over me. Then let's give him a taste of what reckless feels like. We walked together toward the cluster of food trucks where the remaining festival crowd lingered, laughter and chatter still thick in the air. I spotted a raised platform where the event's MC had been announcing fireworks earlier. It was empty now, just a microphone and a few cords left behind. Perfect, I murmured. Caleb noticed us then, his eyes narrowing as we approached. He hung up his call mid-sentence, shoving the phone into his pocket. What are you doing? Madison stepped up onto the platform first, turning to offer me a hand. Something you won't forget, she said, her voice carrying just enough to make a few nearby heads turn. By the time Caleb reached us, more people were looking. And in the pit of my stomach, I knew the next few minutes would decide exactly how this story ended, for all three of us. The crowd's curiosity spread fast, rippling outward like the aftershocks of a firework. People turned, drawn by the raised voices and the sight of two women standing on the platform, with a man frozen just below. Caleb's posture was tense, his eyes darting from me to Madison, calculating escape routes that didn't exist. I took the microphone first, my voice carrying clear and sharp over the chatter. Some of you might know this man, I began, gesturing toward Caleb. His name is Caleb Wright. He's an architect here in Charleston. He's also my fiancé. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Caleb stepped forward, hand half raised like he was going to cut me off. But Madison was already moving. And mine, she said, her tone ringing with equal conviction. The gasps were audible this time. Madison pulled out her phone, swiping to the photo she'd shown me earlier and holding it high for anyone nearby to see. This was 2 weeks ago, in what he told me was his apartment. Whispers sharpened into judgmental stares. Caleb's face flushed, the easy charm he wore like a second skin peeling away under the weight of so many eyes. 2 women, I continued, 2 proposals. 1 ring. And a web of lies that's been going on for years. I pulled the ring from my clutch, holding it up so it caught the light. This was supposed to be mine. But he gave it to her first. Or maybe he never cared whose hand it ended up on. Caleb's voice cracked when he finally spoke. Rachel, Madison, we can talk about this. No, Madison cut in, stepping closer to the edge of the platform. We're done talking. You've been writing the script long enough. Tonight, we take it back. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw not a rival but an ally. We stepped down from the platform together, leaving Caleb standing there. The crowd's eyes locked on him like a spotlight he couldn't step out of. By the time we reached the edge of the festival, Madison slipped the ring from her finger and dropped it into a nearby trash bin without looking back. You keep yours, she told me. As a reminder. I smiled faintly. I don't need one. We walked away in opposite directions, no promises to stay in touch, no need for them. The fireworks were over, and so was he. And in the cooling night air, with the crowd's murmurs fading behind me, I realized the twist wasn't just that Caleb lost both fiancés in one night, it was that we left on our own terms, taking back every ounce of control he thought he had.